As you watch the following video, notice how a brother named Carlos came to appreciate that Jehovah is the loving Father whom he had always yearned for.
When I went through difficult times during my childhood, Jehovah was like my father. He was my refuge. The first memory I have of my dad is when I went to visit him in the prison where he was being held. I asked Jehovah so many times for my dad to come back home. One day, my mom said, "Dad's coming home today." I went to school, and when I came back, he was there. I thought he was finally back for good and that it would be forever. But soon after that, I heard my mom and my grandmother crying, and they started to explain that my dad was back in prison. From then on, I felt hatred, resentment, and anger toward my dad, and also toward Jehovah. I started to take drugs, to lead an immoral and violent lifestyle. One day, a couple of sisters gave me a magazine. As I was looking through it, I saw the experience about Dustin. I began to think about the times during my childhood when I would take refuge in Jehovah and would feel the same way Dustin did. I would say, "Jehovah is there. He hasn't abandoned me." Dustin never doubted Jehovah's love, right up until the day he died. That very night, I prayed to Jehovah. I asked him to forgive me because it wasn't his fault. That night, I poured out all my feelings to Jehovah. That burden that I felt was finally gone. I felt Jehovah's love every step of the way. He showed it through the brothers who didn't judge me for what I had done. It doesn't matter how many problems we have or how far we've drifted away from Jehovah. He never abandons us.
So what we have here is yet another appeal to emotion. We get them all the time at conventions. We get them in between conventions in the JW broadcasting episodes. These tear-jerking, heart-tugging, emotional testimonials from teary-eyed Jehovah's Witnesses relating their personal experience. And based on their personal experience, people are supposed to think, this must be the truth. This must be God's one true religion, because look how emotional this person is on camera. Look how endearing they are. Look how compelling their story is. It must be the truth. But of course, we've established no such thing. In this case, all we've established that Carlos had a rubbish upbringing, was failed by his father, and took solace in a cult. That's all we've learned. You can find teary-eyed testimonials like this in any other religious group. Simply having a difficult or traumatizing experience and leaning on one's faith as a means of getting through that trial is not evidence for God. And yet that's how this is being pitched. Because let's remember, Gerrit Loesch's talk is titled, "Why We Have Faith in God's Love." He's following hot on the heels of David Schaefer trying to explain why we can have evidence that God exists, Mark Neumayer trying to explain why we have evidence that the Bible is authentic, historically and scientifically accurate, Sam Hurd trying to explain why we can have faith that the Bible is a good moral framework. And now Gerrit Loesch's job is to say we can have faith in God's love. Exhibit A, Carlos. Carlos had a difficult upbringing. He drew strength and inspiration from the story of another Jehovah's Witness child, which, if you're interested, I think he's referring to an article titled A Child's Faith in the August 2006 Awake, pages 26 and 27. Here's a guy named Carlos who drew inspiration from the story of another Jehovah's Witness child. Therefore, it's the truth. Therefore, you can have faith in God's love so long as you accept the authority of the faithful slave, so long as you acknowledge the authority of Gerrit Loesch and his pals.